Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And right now, a lot of reaction going on all over the world relative to the tariff implementations. On top of that, China seems to be waging war on us with maybe dumping a lot of treasury bonds, driving up the market crazy. And we're also getting into a lot of problems with the tariff disparities and realistically realizing that it's coming to life again. And there was a YouTube video of Nancy Pelosi when she was just a congresswoman in 1966, railing about the disparity in the tariffs between us and China and the number of jobs that are created in China compared to the number of jobs lost in the United States. So this has been an ongoing problem. And there's a quote from President Trump that showed up today. This should have been done years ago. This should have been done before Obama, and in all fairness, not only Obama, but Biden. So this has been a festering problem, and the question is, how does this get resolved within the framework of the Constitution? So we're having Constitution 101, Part 5, with Margo Jones. Welcome, Margo.
Well, George, it's good to have you as my guide through our program, and I wanted to start off just a little bit about why I happen to be the counter to you in this program. I was a good Republican, and when the vote came in, I voted for Trump in his first election to presidency. But in the first 3 months of his first reign, he did something that, to me, said something about his character that I cannot forget. He told the state of Washington, when the governor there did not like what it was that he was being asked of by the president turned around and said, "If you don't take my view, you won't get anything in your state from me." To me, a president of the United States telling a state that they are not going to receive any help, aid, or from the presidency just because he has a disagreement of opinion, that showed me right off that this is an unhonorable man that is in our president's seat. And I've been following along with what's been going on. And some of the things that have happened with this situation of his being put on the ballot for this last year. We had in our Constitution the Amendment 14, Section 3, that if you don't have a Constitution writing or a booklet in front of you, that's called 14.3. And it says that if you have been in an insurrection and taken an oath of office for being a person in office, and the office is the word for the role of being the president because of the way it gets you into the office. So you have pledged in the Constitution, it says, when you take the oath of office, and somewhere here I have the oath of office, and it clearly states that you will abide by all of the rules and regulations of the Constitution of the United States. And one by one, they seem to be disappearing from our president's knowledge that there are rules in the Constitution that he is just saying, well, I'll do what I want to do and call them mandates, and I won't involve anybody else. It is my opinion. And so one of the first things that came to my mind was the order of the cutting off of the heads of security in his first mandates, which numbered 18 members.
Mm-hmm.
One of them accepted his offer to resign up through September, and the other are now in court cases against him because he is a member of the executive department of government, and the Congress is a part of the legislature department of the country. And we have over here the legislature, which is the House of Representatives and the Senate. And over here we have the executive department, which is the president's department.
Yep.
And
And
the
then over
president-
here, we've got the constitutional created Supreme Court.
Oh, right.
So really,
That has just come to my attention, that we have a Supreme Court that is kind of over everybody over here.
well,
and-
it's not, the Supreme Court has got limitations of what they can do too. They can't run the country. They can't enforce any of the laws. But where we're into this predicament is now, the presidents may use lots of their unilateral powers, which is what you're concerned about, to include executive orders, rules that bypass Congress. So he can do things that doesn't need Congress agreement on, to have the force of law, and if the courts don't overrule them. So the system of checks and balances is still in effect. And where we are right now, and I think this is what bothers me about the situation, is every time the president writes one of these executive orders or comes down with one of these mandates to do something, somebody will protest it. They will run and find a Democrat-appointed circuit judge who will agree with them and say to the president, you can't do that. And then it goes off to the Supreme Court, which is much more conservative, and they say, yes, he can. So this is getting to be almost like a sideshow of one party's judges versus another party's judges. So
This is a
the
very
country
good-
the country deserves better than that.
This brings up a very important point that isn't in the tariff situation, but it is in the removal of people from this country, the immigrants that have been over 200 sent to El Salvador, that there was a judge that says none of these people have done through due process, which is a constitutional right.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 3 planes ready to take all these people that have been ripped off the road with no knowledge of what it is they're being taken away from their families, et cetera, et cetera. A few of them, it came to about 75% of the people that were being deported from this country did not have a reason for being deported and did not have due process of law, which they are entitled to through our Constitution. And there was a judge that says, you can't send those planes over without taking first this important step in the removal, just because you see them as an immigrant and they came here illegally, you can deport them. Well, that isn't the way the Constitution says you should be running this particular item. And then the planes went anyway. And there were a few people that, oh, we shouldn't have had them on the plane. We're sorry that we had this inconvenience for these people, which haven't yet been returned, but that was the comment from the administration. And the issue got to the Supreme Court, and imposing this law from, what was it, 1786 or something, that if they're at war with, they can do this particular thing because they were not here legally or something like that. It's okay that they are all in the El Salvador prison. They confirmed the president's wish to get rid of these people as if they were slugs in the dirt.
Yeah, it's a messy situation. And the one that really bothers me is that they took one of these illegals and sent them to Guantanamo. And they shouldn't have. So, I mean, this is where this whole thing gets to be very, very sloppy. And I think that is one of the points that irritates a lot of people about this thing, that it doesn't seem like a smooth operation. But at the same time, you can see some of these foreign countries are coming around to, oh, well, maybe we don't need to have all these disparities in the tariffs. And they're willing to start to negotiate. So to some extent, this gets to be more of a negotiation technique than it is to really go out and purge the country and clean up the law.
Okay, that's bringing us to the direction of the president and how he's seeing tariffs. China holds a lot of our, they're not receipts, the
Treasury bonds.
our debt.
Oh, yeah.
And they are in the process of now doing some negotiation about.
Well, they're selling them. They're dumping them on the market.
And so that our tariff situation is getting worse and worse.
Well,
But as far as financially,
well, what the president is doing, he's using tariffs as a negotiation technique. China isn't buying it. They're retaliating the best way they can, which is dump the Treasury bonds.
but the issue of tariffs to, excuse the expression, to make America great again.
Yeah.
This situation of us in this electronic and push-button world and the AI world is something that if we don't have what we need to create this type of a world, we have to go outside our own country to do so. We need to get parts that we don't have here to make these things happen. And yet our president thinks it's perfectly all right to impose tariffs of anything coming in from these countries that are needed because we don't have them. And that is, to me, not being a good neighbor, not thinking of the economy of the world, or even our own economy. And as people have seen in the last few days, the market goes up and, goes down, 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 and then it goes up. But then there's a wind, and so that the stability of our own country is a precious result of all this tariff situation going in. And to do it as broadly as the president did first is to impress this tariff worldwide.
Yeah. Well, it's a worldwide problem. I mean, you get back into the situation after World War II. Europe was totally devastated. Japan was totally devastated. We had the Marshall Plan that went in and said, okay, we're going to help you guys get back on your feet. And we did it. And
What did we require from each of them at that time?
Nothing.
You said nothing?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad I heard that word.
And at the same time, they started building up their industry, and they started imposing tariffs on us to ship stuff into the country, but we didn't impose the comparable tariffs on them. And that's what Nancy Pelosi was complaining about back in 1966. So this situation has gone on and on and on.
In other words, we have done a good deed, and it wasn't basically reciprocated by the
Exactly.
beneficial countries.
And when it really came to a head was with the Ukrainian war, that all of a sudden we found out that, well, Bill Clinton in 1990 made a promise to the Ukrainians that if you gave up your nuclear weapons, we will protect you. So they did, and we burned all their U-235, and then, oh yeah, we'll send you some ammunition, is about all we've done for the Ukrainians. So that promise got to be somewhat forgotten. And we end up with this situation right now that the Ukrainian war has gone on for 3 years, and we have run into a problem in the Red Sea where the Houthis are attacking ships coming up the canal.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've got to go in and fight them. But who else is fighting them? Lots of people use that canal to ship goods up and down the Red Sea into the Suez Canal, and yet we're the only ones that are going in there and actually doing something about it. So this gets to be a very one-sided process, and in the net result, as you point out, we are not a very resilient country.
We have to have supplies from outside coming in to do what it is we do within.
Exactly. And we used to be very resilient. If you think back to World War II, the number of auto factories that converted to making tanks and airplanes was astronomical. The number of shipyards that got created. All this was a tremendous industry that supported Europe, especially Russia. They didn't have anything hardly. So we did all of this, and now it's gotten to the point where we really can't do this forever. You guys have got to start carrying some of your own load. And I think this is the pushback that the president is trying to enforce. He's doing it with a very aggressive form of tariffs. Now you see it, now you don't, kind of thing. But he seems to be getting people's attention that, oh, the old world order isn't working anymore. We need something new. And I think the old world order was tied into Russia being a formidable ally to the communist world and a formidable foe to the democratic world. And all of a sudden, one of the things that came out of the Ukrainian wars, Russia ain't got it anymore. They can't even beat a third world country. So now the situation has changed, and it's messy. That's what bothers me.
Okay, the pact that Trump is trying to get with Ukraine is counter to anything that I could ever imagine our country requiring. 50% of all natural and mineral products would be payable to us, and that being an open end forever. It is, to me, I will see that you get the war ended, but you have to return 50% of everything that your country has to offer.
Well, it's not 50% of everything. It's specifically after the certain minerals that
we don't have.
we have, but we don't do. We aren't. We don't do the mining of that stuff.
Oh, we don't do the mining of that stuff.
That's another issue when you get into the
Yeah.
environmentalists.
All right. But the fact that demanding so much to get an end to something that, and as you point out, Russia has lost a great deal more in male population than Ukraine, even though they tend to be stealing more land.
Yeah.
It is a great sacrifice that the people of Russia aren't particularly happy about, but we don't get to hear that very often.
And they don't do much about it.
And they don't do much about it.
Yes.
We have actually subsided or taken all our own companies out of Russia, and that's step one in the warfare.
Oh, yeah. It's trying to turn a shooting war into an economic one where you lose a couple of bucks, but you don't get shot.
We don't get
That's a alternative.
okay.
But
This imposing of tariffs on our neighbor, North and South, and Trump saying, oh, I think it's about time we bought Canada.
oh, he's rattling their cage, and he's doing it very effectively.
Oh, yes, he wants to buy Greenland.
Now, that's another technical issue.
And that's technical because Greenland is only halfway between here and Russia, and it is a defense property that is, something we would love to have.
We already have bases on Canada.
We have bases on it, but why, why bring it up to be, I mean, it's almost like our president is trying to be a real estate agent. Oh, let's buy Gaza. I would turn it into a park, and people could go there on vacation and have these beautiful.
Yeah, the Riviera of the East. Yeah,
the Riviera of the East. Which brings me to the interesting.
He is a real estate buyer,
I know,
dealer
he was
anyway.
a mogul of that. That brings me to the interesting fee that was paid to El Salvador for being able to bring our prisoners into our deportees into their country. Trump paid $1 million to do that. Where did that $1 million come from?
Your taxes, what else? He doesn't make money for the use of the government.
But that is what was the.
Well, I mean, he's a wheeler and dealer, and that's what he's doing.
Okay.
And to him, he thought it was a good deal, and therefore he went into it. Now, lots of people are going to look at what he's doing. In fact, there are lots of people who are looking at what he's doing and think it's an absolute tragedy. But he's the president we've got.
He is a president who deals by intimidation.
Yeah.
For example, the doctor who was going to her country of birth, not being allowed to come back into our country because he didn't like that country. She was one of 3 in a medical department of which there are only 3 people able to do that work. She's been here for years. Just because he doesn't like the country that was her birth country, not being allowed to come back into this country?
Well, the other half of the story is that she was propagandizing in favor of the Palestinians.
Well, maybe she was. Maybe they needed to have somebody support them because the Hamas is not the Palestinian people. They are the rulers of the Palestinian country, and they allow him to be there. They're not happy with him.
No, but they don't do anything about it.
Well, what are they supposed to do when you have a person that's like our own person who doesn't have anything but control over a whole lot of things?
Well, exactly what we did when we didn't like what the English were doing in 1770-something or other. We eventually went to war with them.
Okay.
I mean, there are solutions to these problems, and I think part of the problem is the United States is unique in that we've got a constitution we've got a government, we got a country that is different from everybody else. And it's difficult for us to understand why these people don't do something about it.
Okay, so you're trying to enlist the activity of, okay. We have people who now are beginning to, as the people of our country, recognizing the insult that they are being faced with, the demands of a person who has really no concern for the people at this particular time. And he keeps saying, you will understand, tips his head, just, and then turns back.
Yeah.
That is his concern about the people of this country. And that is, to me, again, an issue which is, we're not really talking about. We're talking about the tariffs and our debt. That's basically our direction of our talk today. And the way that China is trying to get goods to come into our country.
Well, like I started to mention earlier, we used to be worried tremendously about Russia. The Ukrainian war proved that Russia isn't our problem, the main problem anymore. What the real problem right now is us versus China.
Okay.
And we're in the process of transitioning into that, and it's very sloppy.
And one of the things that is right on the deck right now is TikTok, as to whether they are going to be bought or sold. And the invasion by electronics of everybody's knowledge, and that brings us to the day one mandates of having Monk go right through without any prior knowledge of firing people, knowing and sending in people who have the ability to get anything out of the electronic security of our country. To me, that is an insult to the people that have been the people trying to get this country under the inflation that is right on them anyway. Being an elder person, I grew up in the affordable generation where 50 cents would take you on a date. You can't just put 1 zero and come out with $5. You have to put 2 zeros after it.
And
That's
probably,
called inflation in less than 100 years.
yeah. And we've had our half hour of fun. Thank you very much for expressing your thoughts. And
You sure we should just continue for another half hour?
no,
but
we've had enough fun for one day. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this evening. And as I mention always, you have a comment, my email address is at the beginning and the end of the recording. And if you have a longer statement to make, there's room for you here at the table. Thank you very much for joining us, and stay tuned.